A sheriff lies bleeding in the red dust, his authority meaningless. The only person who can save him is the Navajo healer he was sent to arrest. Her medicine is real, but her condition is not money. It is a demand that inverts a century of history, and to live, he must agree. This is the territory of the Dene, the Navajo. For generations, their healers, the Hadaleh, have mended bodies and spirits, but for nearly a century, their sacred ceremonies were crimes. The man with the badge represents the very force that outlawed her way of life. So what could she possibly want from him? The answer would force a reckoning with history itself. The year is 1927. The sheriff is Thomas Wheeler, a veteran of the Great War, now enforcing order in a county fractured by land disputes. The healer is Lena Tsosi, a Hadaleh trained by her grandmother, who remembers when soldiers burned medicine bundles. Their worlds are not just different, they are legally opposed. For Thomas, the law is clear. His orders come from the county seat, influenced by mining interests eyeing the copper in the western mesas. His specific task, to serve a notice of trespass to Lena Tsosi, whose family has lived on that strip of canyon for generations but holds no paper deed recognized by the court. The notice is a formality, a first step toward removal. To him, she is a squatter, and her ceremonies are a nuisance that frightens the new settlers. He knows the stories, of course, whispers of sand paintings that could cure consumption, of herbs that mended broken bones. He dismisses them as superstition, the kind of thing modern medicine, with its vaccines and scalpels, was meant to erase. But Lena's world operates on a different axis of time and law. Her authority comes from the holy people, from a covenant to maintain Haja balance, beauty, harmony. Her healing is not a matter of belief. It is a technology of ritual, song, and profound botanical knowledge. The Navajo use over 450 plants for medicine, a deeper pharmacopoeia than any European tradition brought west. Her payment has always been in sheep, in blankets, in labor, a reciprocal exchange that binds community. The sheriff's piece of paper is not just an eviction notice. It is the latest flick of a whip that began decades before Thomas was born. Because in 1883, the U.S. government's Bureau of Indian Affairs issued the Court of Indian Offenses rules. These codes made it a crime, punishable by imprisonment or the withholding of food rations, to participate in traditional healing ceremonies. Medicine bundles were confiscated and destroyed. The Hadaleh were forced underground. The explicit goal was to destroy the spiritual backbone of indigenous resistance, to sever people from the very practices that ensured their health and cohesion. Law enforcement, from cavalry to local sheriffs, were the shock troops of this cultural siege. When Thomas Wheeler pins that badge to his chest, he is, whether he knows it or not, putting on the uniform of that continuing war. Thomas rides out to Lena's Hogan on a Tuesday, the desert air crisp. He finds her not chanting over a patient, but quietly sorting yarrow and juniper bark outside her door. She does not look up as he dismounts. He states his business, voice official, holding out the folded notice. She listens, her hands still working. When he finishes, she finally meets his eyes. "Your law is young," she says in careful English. "It is built on taking. My way is old. It is built on giving back. You are standing on my church, Sheriff. Would you serve a trespass notice in a white man's chapel?" The question unsettles him. He drops the notice on a nearby rock. "It's the law, ma'am. You have 30 days. As he turns to leave, a group of Navajo men from the nearby community appear silently at the canyon's edge, watching. No threats are made, but their presence is a palpable pressure. Thomas feels a prickle on his neck that has nothing to do with the sun. The first crack has appeared in his certainty. A week later, crisis erupts. A dispute between a sheepherder and a mining surveyor turns violent near the disputed land. Thomas rides in to break it up, arriving to shouts and the glint of a knife. In the chaotic scuffle, a surveyor's horse spooks, its hoof striking Thomas square in the chest before trampling his leg. He hears the sickening crunch of bone. The pain is immediate, a white-hot spear. The surveyor flees, the sheepherder vanishes into the rocks. Thomas is left alone, miles from town, the sun climbing, his breath coming in ragged, wet gasps. A rib has likely punctured a lung. His leg is bent at a nauseating angle. He knows with the cold clarity of a dying man that the ride back would kill him. And then he remembers where he is. The canyon walls look familiar. He is perhaps 2 miles from Lena Tsosi's Hogan. The irony is a bitter taste in his mouth. The woman he was sent to remove is now his only plausible hope for survival. Every instinct, every ounce of his modern training screams against it. But the ground is soaking up his blood, and the vultures are already circling high above. He has no choice. It takes him over an hour to crawl, dragging his shattered leg, leaving a smeared trail in the sand. Consciousness comes and goes. He finally collapses at the base of the slope leading to her home. He does not have the strength to call out. He simply waits for death or for her. Lena finds him there as the afternoon shadows grow long. She looks down at him, the sheriff who delivered her eviction notice, now broken at her threshold. Her expression is unreadable. She does not rush. She kneels, her skilled hands probing his chest and leg with a clinical efficiency that surprises him. She listens to his ragged breathing. Finally, she speaks. "I can cure your wound," she says, her voice calm as still water, "but on one condition." Thomas, through the haze of pain, manages a nod. He expects it now. Money he doesn't have, a promise to leave her alone, maybe even his badge. But her condition is none of those things. Her condition is simple and utterly impossible. "You will stay," she says. "You will be my patient and you will witness the full *Nightway* ceremony. You will see, with your own eyes, the medicine your laws called a crime." To live, Sheriff Thomas Wheeler must not only receive the forbidden healing, he must consent to be its proof. Thomas stares, his mind fogged with pain. A ceremony, that's it, but the weight of her words slowly sinks in. He is not just asking for help, he is being asked to legitimize her entire world, to step into the role of a believer. For a man of law and order, it feels like a surrender, yet the alternative is the vultures. He gives a weak, bloody nod. "Do it." What follows is not a gentle nursing. It is a rigorous, ancient protocol. Lena does not touch his leg immediately. First, with strength that belies her frame, she drags him inside the Hogan, the round, earth-scented dwelling. She tells him in a tone that brokers no argument that the healing of the bone is secondary. The primary sickness is the disruption, the violence that entered him. That must be addressed first, or the bone will mend crooked and the lung will fester. She is speaking of Haja. She begins with practical, startling skill. From a buckskin pouch, she produces a splint made of flexible willow, preformed, and binds his leg with strips of clean, woven cloth. The pain is excruciating, but her hands are swift and sure. For his ribs, she prepares a poultice of crushed sage and cliff rose, warmed over the fire, and packs it against his chest with a firm pressure that finally eases the stabbing sensation with each breath. These acts are quiet, efficient, the work of an herbalist, a bone setter. They are, he realizes with a shock, medically sound. This is the first crack in his worldview. But then the deeper work begins. Lena's grandmother, a woman so old she seems carved from the canyon walls, is summoned. Others arrive from the nearby community, a singer, a man who prepares the ritual items. They speak in low tones in Dene. Thomas, feverish, watches as they ignore him, not with malice but with a focused purpose. He is no longer the sheriff, he is the patient, a vessel to be restored. The power dynamic has completely inverted. Lena explains the outline. The Nightway is a 9-day ceremony. For a white man and in his condition, she will conduct a condensed single-night version, a sing asterisk. But its core is the same, to attract holiness and repel evil through song, prayer, and the sacred sand painting. Thomas balks. 9 days, I have to get back. My town, Lena cuts him off. You chose life. This is the price, your badge will wait. The first night, as darkness falls, the singer begins. The rhythmic chanting, the shake of the gourd rattle, is unlike anything Thomas has heard. It is not a melody, It is a topography of sound, rising and falling like the desert itself. He is instructed to focus on the fire, to breathe in the smoke of burning juniper. Against all his instincts, he does. The pain in his body seems to separate, to become a distant signal. He feels a profound, disorienting calm. On the second day, he is taken to a sweat lodge, a small dome-shaped structure of blankets and canvas. Hot stones are brought in, water splashed upon them. The steam is overwhelming, purging. He gasps, believing he will suffocate. Lena's voice comes through the dense heat. Breathe the pain out, let the stone take it. It is a brutal, cleansing agony. When he staggers out, shivering and reborn, he vomits into the sand, a purge that feels psychological as much as physical. Throughout, Lena tends to his physical wounds with precise changes of poultice, with bitter teas of osha root for inflammation and gumweed for infection. The swelling in his leg visibly recedes. The grinding pain in his chest dulls to an ache. He cannot deny the empirical evidence. Her medicine is working. But it is the ritual that unsettles him more, because it is working too. His nightmares of the trampling horse, of the surveyor's knife, begin to fade. The constant, low-grade anxiety of his job loosens its grip. He is, against every fiber of his being healed. The pivotal moment arrives on the third evening. The sand painting. In the center of the hogan, on a bed of clean, smooth sand, Lena and her assistant begin their art. Using natural pigments, yellow ochre, red sandstone, charcoal, white gypsum, they trickle the colors from their fists, creating an intricate swirling mandala of symbols. The holy people, the mountains, the rainbow. It is breathtakingly beautiful, a cosmology made visible. This, Thomas realizes with a jolt, is what the government agents burned. This is the witchcraft they outlawed. To see it is to understand it as holy text. Lena guides him to sit at the edge of the painting. The singer's chant reaches a crescendo. Then, in an act that seems to Thomas the ultimate desecration, she instructs him to touch the painting, to let the colored sand dust his hands, and then to rub it over his heart and his injured leg. The harmony enters you, she says. The imbalance is taken by the sand. Afterward, the entire painting is meticulously destroyed, swept into a blanket, the disorder and sickness carried away. The sacred is transient, a tool for healing, not an idol. The theological sophistication of it humbles him to silence. By the dawn of the fourth day, Thomas Wheeler is a different man. He can stand with support. His breathing is clear. The bones are knitting, far faster than any doctor in town would credit. But the real fracture is in his mind. The healer he was sent to remove has saved his life with a sophisticated system of medicine and spirituality his own civilization tried to eradicate. The badge in his pocket feels alien, a symbol of a profound ignorance. It is then that Lena sits with him as the sun rises. "You asked me once what I wanted," she says. "It was not your land notice. It was your eyes, you have seen. Now you must choose. You can return to your world and call this a strange story, or you can be the bridge." Thomas understands. Her condition was not just about witnessing, but about becoming a witness. He now holds evidence that could shatter the official narrative, but to speak it is professional and possibly social suicide. He is wrestling with this impossible choice when the outside world crashes back in. The sound of horses, many of them, approaches the canyon. Voices call out, angry white voices. "Wheeler, Sheriff Wheeler, you in there?" It's a deputized posse from town, led by the mining company foreman. They've come looking for their missing sheriff, and they've found him in the heart of the very place he was supposed to clear. They see the hogan, the medicine bundles outside, the healer. And they see their sheriff standing beside her, clearly in her care. The foreman, a brutish man named Daggett, levels his rifle not at Thomas but at Lena. "We heard you got jumped, Sheriff. This squaw give you trouble. We're here to clean this place out once and for all." Thomas Wheeler is now pinned in the ultimate crucible. His body is healed, but his loyalty is split. Behind him is the healer who saved him and the truth he has seen. Before him is the armed power of the world he swore to uphold, poised to destroy it all. The bridge Lena spoke of is now a narrow, deadly ledge, and he is the only one who can walk it. Thomas Wheeler does not hesitate. He steps forward, his body still aching but his voice steady with a new authority. "Lower your weapon, Daggett." The foreman's eyes narrow. "Or what, Sheriff? You gonna arrest me for helping you?" Thomas realizes the true test isn't against the posse, it's against the story they will tell when they ride back without him. "I'm giving you a direct order," Thomas says, his hand resting on his own holster, though he has no intention of drawing. "This woman provided medical aid. This is a place of healing, not a squatter's camp. You will ride back to town and inform the mayor I am conducting an investigation into the assault on a county officer." It's a bluff, a bureaucratic wall built with words. Daggett scoffs, but the other men in the posse, who are just townsfolk, look uncertain. They see their sheriff, alive and commanding, defending a Navajo woman. The narrative is already slipping from Daggett's grip. After a tense minute, Daggett spits on the ground. "Fine, play medicine man. But the county judge signed that eviction order, it's legal. And when you come crawling back, Wheeler, don't expect your desk to be waiting." He wheels his horse and the posse reluctantly follows, casting confused glances back. The dust settles, leaving a silence more threatening than the shouting. Lena has not moved. "You bought a day," she says quietly. "Maybe two. They will say you are compromised, that her magic has addled your mind." Thomas knows she's right. The real battle is now in the court of public opinion and official record. He must move first. He turns to her. "You need a deed, something older than the county's maps." Lena's grandmother, who has been observing from the Hogan's doorway, speaks for the first time in English, her voice like stones rubbing together. "We have older than paper. We have the story in the land, but the white court wants its mark." This begins a desperate race. Thomas uses his knowledge of the system. He knows that if he can file a formal injunction against the eviction, citing a historical land use claim, it could force a hearing, buying months. But to do that, he needs evidence recognized by the court. Lena and her community begin gathering what they have. Testimonies from elders about boundaries, descriptions of sacred sites, even a faded Spanish land grant from the 1700s that a trader once left with a great-grandfather. Its ink nearly vanished. It's a patchwork history against the mining company's clean, newly printed deed. Thomas rides to the nearest telegraph office, 20 miles away. He sends a carefully worded message to the territorial governor's office, reporting an attempt on a lawman's life and the destabilizing actions of a private mining interest. He CCs the Regional Bureau of Indian Affairs, a calculated risk. He is no longer just enforcing the law, he is navigating the labyrinth of power that writes it. But the countermove is swift and brutal. 2 days later, a formal notice arrives not for Lena but for Thomas. He is suspended from duty, pending a review of his fitness and conduct, signed by the county commissioner, a man known to own stock in the very mining company Daggett works for. Thomas's authority is stripped. The badge is meaningless. Now he is simply a man living on contested land, with no legal standing to protect anyone, not even himself. This is the wait it gets worse moment. The institutional power has not just pushed back, it has disowned him. He is now an outsider in both worlds. In town, he is a traitor to progress. On the land, he is a white man without a badge, his protection of Lena seen by some of the younger Navajo men as another form of interference. He is in a no-man's land. It is Lena who solidifies their alliance. She tells him the full history. Her grandmother, as a young woman, was arrested in 1904 by a sheriff's deputy for performing a healing song. She spent 6 months in a prison in Albuquerque, where the cold and the rotten food nearly killed her. The offense? Practicing medicine without a license and disorderly conduct. Lena pulls a fragile, yellowed newspaper clipping from a painted box. It's from the Albuquerque Journal, dated 1905. The headline reads, "Indian Witch Doctor Sentenced. Civilization Advances." Thomas reads it, and the moral ground of his entire profession crumbles beneath him. The law he served was the direct descendant of this cruelty. "Your condition," Thomas says, understanding dawning. "You didn't just want me to see the ceremony. You wanted me to feel what it is to be on the other side of that law." Lena nods. "Now you know. The paper they serve today is the same hand that wrote that headline. Armed with this visceral history, Thomas makes his decision. He will travel to Santa Fe, to the territorial capital. He will petition the governor directly, not as a sheriff, but as a citizen presenting evidence of corruption and historical injustice. It is a long shot, but before he can leave, a second, more chilling revelation arrives. A young Navajo boy sent as a runner from a nearby settlement brings news. The mining company hasn't been idle. They've hired a crew of special deputies, essentially mercenaries from Texas, bypassing the local posse altogether. These men are reportedly already in the territory, and they have a reputation for clearing problems without asking questions. The timeline has collapsed. They are not coming in weeks. They could be here in days. Thomas and Lena face a grim calculus. He cannot make it to Santa Fe and back in time. Staying means a likely violent confrontation they cannot win, but leaving means abandoning the land, the Hogan, the sacred sites to destruction. It is Lena's grandmother who offers the third path, rooted in a deeper tradition. "We do not fight their kind of fight," she says. "We remind them the land itself is a witness." She proposes a blessing way ceremony, not for healing a person but for the land itself. A ceremony to strengthen its spiritual presence, to make its sacred nature undeniable, even to those who refuse to see. It is an act of profound defiance, using the very practice they are being evicted for to fortify their claim. The community agrees. They will not flee. They will not meet violence with violence. They will meet it with ceremony, turning the eviction into a desecration in the eyes of any observer with a shred of conscience. The news spreads through the canyons. Navajo families begin to arrive, not with weapons, but with offerings, with food, with their presence. They set up camp around Lena's Hogan. It is not a protest camp. It is a ceremonial gathering. By the afternoon of the next day, over 60 people are there, quietly preparing. The air hums with purpose, not panic. Thomas, watching this, experiences his final pivot. He sees that this is the true power structure, not the sheriff's office, not the county court, but this community acting in unison according to a deeper law. His role is no longer protector or plaintiff. It is witness and now participant. He helps gather firewood. He listens to the songs as they begin at dusk. He is irrevocably part of the story. On the morning of the third day, the special deputies arrive. There are 10 of them, hardened men on good horses, led by a gaunt man with a federal marshal's badge that Thomas instantly recognizes as fake. They ride up to the edge of the gathering, expecting resistance, expecting fear. They find instead a quiet, seated crowd, a central fire, and the low, resonant drone of a medicine song. At the center, Lena Tsosi tends the fire. Beside her, Thomas Wheeler stands, unarmed, wearing not a badge but a simple blanket over his shoulders. The lead mercenary, confused and angry, shouts for them to disperse. No one moves. He threatens to start dragging people off. It is then that Thomas speaks, his voice carrying in the clear air. "You are about to interrupt a religious ceremony on land under a clouded title. Every man here is a witness. The territorial governor has been notified. Do you want your employer's name in the papers for breaking up a church service?" It's another bluff, but a potent one. The mercenaries are hired for force, not for a public relations disaster. They confer, visibly frustrated. They did not expect this. They expected a lone woman, maybe a few stragglers to intimidate. They did not expect a community, a ceremony, and a former sheriff using the language of law and press against them. The standoff stretches for an hour. The singing continues, unwavering. Finally, the mercenaries turn and ride away, but the victory is thin and temporary. They will report back. The mining company will apply more pressure, legally and otherwise. The reprieve is measured in hours. As the sun climbs, Thomas knows the bridge he has walked has led him to a point of no return. The ceremony has fortified the land, but the real battle must now shift to the halls of power he just invoked. He must get to Santa Fe. And he must take the story of this morning, the story of the armed men facing down a healing song with him. The struggle is no longer for a plot of land. It is for the narrative of history itself, and he is now its reluctant but determined author. Thomas Wheeler rides for Santa Fe with the evidence in his saddlebags and a story on his tongue. But the capital is a labyrinth of its own, where truth is just another commodity. To win, he must turn his personal redemption into a political argument, and he must do it before the mining company's money silences the governor's ear forever. The journey takes 4 hard days. His body, though healed, protests the relentless riding, but the memory of the ceremonial gathering of the mercenaries halted by a song fuels him. He arrives not as a sheriff, but as a petitioner. He bypasses the official channels that have already failed him and uses his last personal connection, a former army captain who now works as the governor's chief of staff. It takes 2 days of waiting in anterooms, of being brushed off by clerks, before he is granted 15 minutes in a stuffy office, not with the governor, but with a weary undersecretary. Thomas lays out the case with the precision of a lawman but the passion of a convert. He presents the faded Spanish grant, the testimonies of elders, the medical affidavit he wrote himself detailing his injuries and Lena Tsosi's treatment. He saves the newspaper clipping from 1905 for last. He places it on the desk. "This," he says, his voice low, "is what we have been enforcing. This is the tradition my suspension continues. I am not asking for special treatment. I am asking for the law to see its own history." The undersecretary, a man named Ellis, reads the clipping. His face tightens. The moral weight of the evidence is one thing, the potential for scandal is another. A former sheriff publicly alleging systemic corruption and historical persecution could draw the attention of Eastern newspapers of reformers. It is a risk to the territory's carefully managed image. Ellis promises nothing, but he takes the file. "Wait in Santa Fe," he says. "Do not speak to the press." The waiting is agonizing. Thomas spends a week in a cheap boarding house watching the telegraph office. He hears nothing. He begins to fear his story has been buried. Meanwhile, he learns through a circuitous telegram from a sympathetic trader that the situation at the canyon is tense but holding. The community remains. The mining company has not moved again, likely waiting for the outcome in Santa Fe. The standoff is now bureaucratic. The break comes on the 8th day. Thomas is summoned not to the capital but to a private home, the residence of an elderly judge, recently retired, named Horace Whitaker. Judge Whitaker, it turns out, is a man with a guilty conscience. In his youth as a territorial prosecutor, he had overseen cases against medicine men. He invites Thomas to his library, a room smelling of leather and dust. "I read your file," the judge says. "I remember that headline. I remember the woman they sentenced. Her name was Tsosi, Lena's grandmother. The connection is chilling." Judge Whitaker provides the missing key, a legal precedent. He digs through his own archives and produces a copy of the Bonin Report, a 1911 investigation into the suppression of indigenous ceremonies. It argued that such suppression violated treaty guarantees of cultural integrity. The report was ignored and buried, but it exists. "The law you served," Whitaker says, "has always had a conscience, however quiet. You must make it speak." Armed with this forgotten document, Thomas and Judge Whitaker draft a formal petition. It does not just ask for an injunction on Lena's eviction. It petitions the governor to issue a public statement recognizing the historical wrong of the Court of Indian Offenses codes, and to direct the county court to consider historical land use and spiritual significance in all pending disputes. It is a monumental ask. They deliver it personally to Governor H.O. Bursum. The political calculus shifts. The governor, facing re-election, sees a chance to appeal to progressive voters and differentiate himself from the corrupt county bosses in the pocket of mining. The petition offers a clean, moral narrative. After another week of deliberation, the governor's office acts. He issues an executive order. It suspends all eviction proceedings on lands with documented historical indigenous use pending a territorial review. It does not mention Lena by name, but it is her canyon that fits the description. Furthermore, he directs the Attorney General to review the old Indian offenses codes for possible formal nullification, a symbolic but powerful gesture. Thomas receives the news by official courier. He has won, not a permanent victory but a crucial stay. The land is safe for now. Lena's way of life is not a crime in this governor's eyes. He rides back to the canyon as fast as he can, the governor's order in his pack. The welcome he receives is not one of cheering but of quiet, profound acknowledgement. Lena greets him with a nod. Her grandmother places a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of immense weight. The community prepares a meal. That night, around a communal fire, Thomas feels a sense of belonging he has never known. He is not Navajo and he never will be. But he is Haja asterisk. He is in balance. He has become a part of restoring harmony. In the weeks that follow, the consequences unfold. Thomas's suspension is made permanent. He is not reinstated as sheriff. The county powers see to that. But he does not want the badge back. Its authority feels hollow to him now. Using his savings and with the community's help, he buys a small parcel of land adjacent to Lena's, not to claim it but to buffer it. He builds a simple cabin. He becomes a rancher of sorts, and an unofficial liaison between the Navajo community and the territorial government. He helps other families file land claims using the new precedent. Lena continues her work as an asterisk hat ally. Patients come from both Navajo and, increasingly, settler communities, those who have heard the story and seek her help where Western medicine has failed. She accepts payment in the old way, in goods and labor. Thomas often translates, and in doing so, learns more of the language of the plants of the stories. The final, surprising detail comes a year later. Thomas receives a letter from the Department of the Interior. It is an invitation. The federal government, in a nascent shift of policy, is forming a commission to document traditional indigenous medicinal plants and practices, partly in response to the lobbying of Eastern botanists and anthropologists. They have heard of Lena Tsosi's knowledge. They request her participation as a paid consultant to share her understanding of the 450 plants of the Navajo pharmacopoeia. The letter explicitly states that her participation is voluntary and her knowledge will be credited to her. It is a stunning reversal. The same government that once jailed her grandmother for her songs now seeks her grandmother's knowledge. Lena is skeptical, deeply so. Thomas advises caution but sees the potential. This could be a way to preserve the knowledge, to give it legitimacy in the white world on their own terms. After much discussion with her community, Lena agrees to participate, but on her conditions. A Diné translator of her choosing must be present. The sessions will be held on or near her land, and the resulting documents must be made available to Navajo schools. The project begins the following spring. It is a small, fragile bridge, but it is built. Thomas watches as Lena carefully, deliberately, shares fragments of a world she once had to hide. The healing that began with a shattered leg in the desert has now, improbably, begun to heal a fracture in history itself. The story of the sheriff and the healer does not end with a wedding, as in the old tale, but with a partnership of a different kind. A shared guardianship of a place and a truth. Thomas Wheeler found his life's purpose not in enforcing the lines on a map, but in helping to redraw them with justice. And Lena Tsosi, who cured his wound for the price of his witness, gained more than a defender. She gained a testament that her way, the old way, had the power to change even the most rigid heart. Their alliance became a quiet legend, a proof that sometimes the only way to mend a broken world is for two enemies to sit together and let the healing begin. The wound Thomas Wheeler carried from that canyon was not just in his mended leg or his healed ribs. It was the crack that let the light in, a realization that the law he served had been, for generations, an instrument of erasure. His story and Lena's force us to ask a difficult question. How many other bridges remain unbuilt because we refuse to pay the price of witness? The legal victory was temporary, a stay against the tide. The mining interests would lobby again. New sheriffs would be elected. But the precedent of looking, of truly seeing, had been set in one man's conscience, and through his actions in the territorial record. The greatest legacy of their alliance was not a plot of saved land, but a demonstrated alternative to the old, brutal script of conquest. It proved that authority could bow to understanding, that a badge could learn from a medicine bundle. This is not just a story of the past. The tension it embodies, between institutional power and indigenous sovereignty, between criminalized knowledge and scientific validation, echoes into our present. The American Indian Religious Freedom Act of 1978 finally repealed the codes that jailed Lena's grandmother, but the struggle for cultural preservation and land rights continues unabated. What Lena Tsosi knew, what her grandmother was imprisoned for, is now recognized as ethnobotany, as holistic medicine, as a vital thread in the tapestry of human knowledge. The validation came, but at a terrible, centuries-long cost. The true healing, then, is ongoing. It is the slow, arduous work of correcting the historical record, of returning agency, of listening. Thomas and Lena's story is a single, vivid thread in that larger repair. It reminds us that systems are changed not only by policy, but by personal transformation, by the courage to stand where you are not expected, and to see what you have been told to ignore. So the next time you hear a story framed as a clash of opposites, modern versus traditional, law versus culture, progress versus preservation, remember the sheriff and the healer. Look for the hidden bridge. Ask what condition for understanding might be waiting in the space between. Sometimes, the most profound cure begins not with an answer, but with a willingness to be transformed by a question. If this story of redemption and resilience resonated with you, we have countless more tales of hidden history and turned tides waiting for you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a journey into the past that illuminates our present. We'll see you in the next story.